Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
No.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, next order is public input, limited to 3 minutes per person, and we have one individual signed up, Mrs. Susie Saiti, and the issue to be presented is scooters and the visitors brochure.
Thank you, Susie. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. 2 subjects, I should get 6 minutes? Just saying. Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I speak as a private citizen, have to make this clear. I'm not representing the Arts Council, but only myself, and my affection and support for small businesses and enterprising young entrepreneurs. My work at 140 Bridge Street gave me a bird's eye view to the scooters as they were introduced to the community in their original trial run. I really appreciate your caution and your diligence and your regard for our safety. I also thank you for being open to this new business and all the possibilities of these play vehicles. They're loved by the tourists and by locals. They exude energy, fresh air. You can't play on your phone and ride a scooter at the same time. That's a big thing. And they connect tourists with more of our beautiful historic community. Last and best of all, they're fun. Nothing is perfectly safe this side of the casket, but you've already done your best to make it as safe as you possibly can, and tonight you vote. I hope you support this thoughtful experiment with change and encourage this endeavor. If other cities can figure out how to make it work safely, so can we. Thank you for that. In addition, I wanted to mention the visitor's guide, or whatever iteration it's being called. It's a brochure this time. Whenever printed material comes up in a meeting, I hear differences of opinion on whether we should prioritize digital or printed material. It sometimes gets almost heated. I just want to present myself to prove to you that one size does not fit all. There are auditory learners, there are visual learners, there are hands-on kinesthetic learners. Each one is going to respond differently to a different form of information. When I was at the Fiestecita committee tent, I was selling the posters for the city, on behalf of the city, helping the Fiesta committee. People kept asking, isn't there anything we can read about this community? Don't you have anything that we can take with us? So I took it upon myself, it's a bad habit, marched over to Plaza Antiques and said, do you have any of your guides? And they gave me 100 guides, or big handful, I estimated. And they disappeared in a couple of hours because people really do, some people prefer it. Some people prefer it online, some people prefer it printed, some people need to hear it on the radio. And so we present everything in as many ways as possible to communicate what a great city we live in. And I just really appreciate your considering printed material in addition to digital and auditory and every other way we can think of to celebrate our town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Mr. Mayor, that concludes public input. Our next item is mayor's appointments, reports, and recognitions or proclamations. We have appointment of Philip Martinez to the Charter Commission.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero,
make a motion to approve Philip Martinez to the Charter Commission.
if there's a motion, I'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is Counselor's reports.
Councilors? Thank you. Next order of business.
City Manager's report.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors, Mayor Trujillo. I'd first like to introduce all our new city employees. We have quite a bit of new city employees that we've received in the last month or so, just over a month. We do have 2 employees that are out of the police department, but I'll let Chief introduce those next week in his report. We first have Miss Sharon Popal in the community development. I think, is she with us today, Miss Sharon? We also have Alexander Ash, which is at our senior center. We have Amor Sena at solid waste. I guess she couldn't make it today. And we have Sharon Mondragon, also solid waste. And the last but not least, out of our wastewater treatment plant, or wastewater, would be Joshua McClanahan. So we welcome them to the city of Las Vegas. We wanted to have their faces so you knew who those individuals were. Moving on to our next item on the report. I give you a packet there in case you wanted to follow along. So that,
Mr. Manager, I'd just like
Yes,
to
sir.
just take a second to welcome all the new employees to the city of Las Vegas, and I hope it's a rewarding career for you. Please reach out if we could do anything for you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maestas.
yes, sir. Moving on to the bridge project, the DOT bridge project. As you may all know, if you've traveled through that area, we broke ground yesterday on that project. It is allotted for 180 days, which would put us to the middle of December. There's also a 2-month period after that so that they can finish a punch list, finish up any ends that need to be tidied up. So I believe we're projected to be finished by March, would be with that project. Moving on to Hanna Park, there was monies that were given to the city of Las Vegas for lighting, to improve lighting, which was originally going to be 10 lights. We've now been able to afford 15 lights with the same budget. We're receiving the last quote as of this afternoon. We already have 2 other quotes, so we can go ahead and finish with the procurement process and get those purchased as of requisition and get them purchased as of tomorrow. Cristone Circle, we've created a scope of work. I know that there was a lot of changes that went along with the Cristone Circle project, the park project. So we did put together a scope of work so we can solicit from landscape contractors to be able to move forward with that project as well.
And you?
Yes, sir.
Or do I wait? I'll wait until after. Sorry.
As you may know, I did message some of the council to let you know that Harris Pond did open as of July 2nd. I did put some pictures in there, and you can see how we kind of redesigned the parking area. There is handicap parking as well, so you cannot take your vehicle around. We were having some trouble with vehicles going into the water or doing other things on the vegetation there, so we kind of minimized that to go around the park. Senior Center has now opened, well, it's been in all the senior centers, which includes Pecos Senior Center, San Miguel Senior Center, and the one in Las Vegas have all been inspected. Pecos and Las Vegas have already opened as of yesterday, I believe. And the San Miguel Center is due to open after being closed for almost 9 years, just over 8 years, I believe it is. On the 19th of the month, will be open. I wanted to touch base on code enforcement briefly. We did have, we had never used our yellow tags before on inoperable vehicles that were in the city right-of-way. We did finally use one on a vehicle that was problematic in the railroad district. They have since moved that vehicle since we posted that. So they will continue to use that as one of their tools to remove these vehicles from the right-of-way. You may also have seen around town the AMR has started. That's the ambulance service that the city and county went in collaboration with to achieve. Superior Ambulance had been here for quite a while, and there was some new changes that needed to happen, and so AMR has taken, has started as of yesterday, as of today, I'm sorry. Also, coming from the fire department, Chief Billy Montoya has stated that our previous medical director had a contract for $4,000. We have a new medical director, which is Dr. Justin Hasten, which is doing it on a pro bono basis, based off of a rural community. Again, all this information, there's a lot more data that came from each of the directors. I didn't want to get into too much detail, but I did attach it there in case you have any questions further. The last one that I did put on there on the agenda, or the manager's report, is we have 3 of our entry-level recruits at the fire department that have completed their EMT basic class, and now they're going for a national certification. I stand for any questions if you have.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
Mr. City Manager,
Yes, sir.
any news on the negotiations on the bridge project?
Yes, sir. So I don't know if you'd like me to take that, or if Ms. Gilberry has some numbers. I do have it in front of me if you'd like to hear them. Ms. Gilberry?
Look off your sheet,
Sure.
I don't remember all the numbers. We did negotiate down within the budget, the funding the city has. We negotiated them down to, with taxes, $1.648 million, which will be funded by the DOT funds. We also have $18,000 from legislative funding for electrical work, so we're going to use that $18,000. And then we'll be using approximately $289,000 from utilities budget for the water and the wastewater projects. So those were additional projects we added in to have the utilities done. To ensure that this project gets completed, the utilities will fund their own projects, and we'll do the road work with DOT's funds.
Okay.
So the whole thing is within city budget. In addition, we've been able to take about $80,000 out of the engineer's contract, and we'll use that in this contract.
And that's it, thank you. Mr. City Manager, on Harris Pond, I recommend that you have staff paint the piping gate yellow,
The entrance gate?
the entrance gate yellow, because it's green. And
Sure.
at night, people, don't see it. And
Sure.
maybe even put one of those red and white signs on there. And also, that park also needs a sign ordered. It don't have no sign at all saying it belongs to the city or rules or ordinances or anything on it. So there's no sign at all. And then just one last question I had for you. Where are we on the playground equipment of transferring it from Las Vegas City Schools to, because it's already been like 3 months or so, 4 months? Do you have any update on that?
So the gentleman that we were getting a quote from, I believe, has given us a quote to remove that equipment. We just have we need to have a place to put it. So part of that would be going to El Criston Circle, or El Criston Park, I should say. And then we're also working with the contract, or the architect, to give us a rendering for Lincoln Park to put some more of those equipment pieces at that park.
Yeah, we're going to go to Hana, Lincoln Park, and also up there, and maybe even South Pacific. But at first, it was, we weren't certified. And then second, we were going to get certified. And then we were going to get somebody else certified. So we need to move on it. I'm sure the schools need to want to get rid of it too. So I recommend that you put that on your list of projects to get attended to, so we can move on with it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Mr. Romero? Dr. Rodriguez?
First off, Leo, I saw the list, the scope of work that you kind of put here in your report for Criston. The concrete, the sidewalks, it's not going to include on the exterior, right? Because if we get that funding, then we would.
So we can eliminate that and use all the monies for the interior part of the project, but at some point, we would have to make those ADA compliant, whether it comes from Streets Department or from this funding.
Okay.
But we're going to try to work to get everything encompassed within the budget that we
And
have,
how
which
soon
is
do you have,
108.
because I do have people calling me from up there, how soon do we have?
So we just got the scope of work, so by the end of the week, we'll have already communicated, I've already communicated with one architect, landscape contractor, I'm sorry. But there is CES and state contract that we can use to speed up that process, now that we have a scope of work. We did not have that.
Yeah.
The monies that we spent originally were $4,000 to get conceptual design, which had been changed 2, 3, 4 times, so we never had a final conceptual design for the park.
And thanks again, Leo, for being on top of that and catching that. The other part, Leo, is I know in the little time that you've been here, you've stepped up and done a lot, so I thank you for that, and, I think you've kind of impressed some individuals, surely have impressed me, so thank you for what you've done so far.
Yes, sir.
I was remiss in welcoming you to your first city council meeting, Mr. Manager. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ulibarri?
Mr. Manager, at Rodriguez Park, do you guys have any out of town people coming in for any baseball teams coming in between here and the winter or year round?
You
Any
mean-
travel ball teams or anything like that? Are they setting up anything for that facility?
Not that I'm aware of. I can communicate with the Parks Director to see if there's anything that's planned, and I can let you know on that, but not to my knowledge, no.
Thank you, sir. One more. Mr. City Manager, I'd ask that our next meeting, or the following meeting, that Mr. Grego give us a full report about the fiestas. I believe they were, 100% successful, but I'm not sure. But, and see what we can change and what we can do new next year, or better next year. I know that this was a rush, late kind of minute thing, but I think it was very successful. But if you can give us a report on the whole works, we appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez?
If you could clarify, I had a resident who contacted me about the basketball poles and nets at the schools. Was that also donated to us? And if so, can that be placed in any of the parks? I haven't had an opportunity to go check all the different parks out, so I don't know if we have basketball courts, but I've had a couple of residents asking if we could have some basketball courts in the parks for the kids also.
To my knowledge, I believe it's just the playground equipment, but I can definitely check with the school district if they're willing to donate the basketball goals and poles as well. That was not part of the...
Yeah, they weren't, that wasn't
Okay.
part of the deal.
Okay.
And they want to keep them.
Okay.
So maybe I can,
We can discuss
you
which
for a bit.
parks are lacking those courts, and then we can look at that.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, just
Mr.
one other
Romero?
question. I know, I'm not sure if you got the email. I know the mayor and I got the email pertaining to Lincoln Park and the gazebo there.
Yes,
Do you have?
I do have it on there, do I not? That it's scheduled to be removed. It's scheduled to start being removed on Friday.
And just for, I don't know if the public knows yet, but just kind of, there's a safety issue with the gazebo right now, a structural
Yes, sir.
safety concerns, so just so the community is aware about that, that's the reason for that to be happening.
So the gazebo was actually a movie prop that was in the movie Wyatt Earp. It's not a historic structure, and it is sustained a lot of damage over the years. We've had some overdoses inside of there. We have a lot of activity that we do not like in the community inside the gazebo, so we've chosen to remove it. And we will be looking at putting a different structure that's a little bit more friendly to having picnics and barbecues for families.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, still got another question.
Mr. Ulibarri?
On Kids Park, I know that a few months back, they went in there and took some of the dug outside, and I kind of feel that they did them too fast, and that's how come we couldn't use those fields. What's going on with are they working on that? I know we had a budget, some money, so they could put everything together there.
So the two dugouts in the large field were demolished. The rubble and the concrete was still there. Yesterday, it was removed, finally. The other two, once the season are over, will be demolished as well, and we can construct all four at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, approval of minutes for June 26, 2021.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Motion to approve the minutes as presented?
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is business items. We will conduct a public hearing for business items 1 and 2. I did not receive any public comments for the public hearing. I'm not sure if there's anybody in the audience, but
Mr.
once
Mayor?
we go into the hearing, we'll ask them to be sworn.
Make a motion to enter public hearing for items 1 and 2.
There's a motion to enter into a public hearing for motion for items 1 and 2. I'll entertain a second.
Second, sir.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
At this time, I would ask anyone who is speaking on items 1 and 2, and these items are the Finance and Budget Code Ordinance for number 1, and the second one is Operation of Bicycles and Play Vehicles, to please stand and be sworn in at this time. You can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name for the record.
Scott Aaron.
Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear
Solemnly
to tell the truth
tell the truth
during my testimony to council tonight.
during my testimony to council tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Aaron, thank you and welcome.
Okay, Mayor and Council, you should have in front of you a copy of, it's included with the agenda, a copy of the changes that were made. There's a red line version that provides the changes that were requested by council the last time this came before council. Those changes have been integrated into the proposed ordinance. That ordinance was published, and we're here today for you guys' consideration of adopting that ordinance. Oh, whoops, sorry, that's not number 1. Number 1 is the Finance and Budget Code Ordinance. For the Finance and Budget Code Ordinance, I each put a paper copy of it there. There were 2 small grammatical errors. They're outlined in red. One was a number, and the other was changing Santa Fe County to San Miguel County. With those 2 small grammatical changes, that ordinance is before you tonight for consideration.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Mr. Aaron, just for the record, I mean, I have the document here, but there's kind of been some confusion, and just for clarification, it's 6%, I mean, it's the percentage of points, not the total amount of the bid.
You know, I would have to have somebody who's familiar with that procurement code process to verify that. Because I don't know, I'm not familiar with what that procurement code process is. This was drafted at the suggestion of and with cooperation with the procurement department here with finance, but I don't.
So on item number 5, most of them say points, but item number 5 says the maximum available local preference shall be 6%. 6% of price or 6% points, or?
My understanding is, if I remember correctly, that it's a percentage of points, but I would want that confirmed with somebody from procurement or finance. Because I don't deal with the procurement or finance part of it.
It was also my understanding that it was the points.
Yeah, that was my understanding, but that number 5 kind of caught my eye.
Yeah. Very well. Do you want to do both of them, or do we have to do separate ones?
No, we'll discuss both of them. Is there anyone else to speak on item number 1? And we can move to item.
Okay. Item number 2, please.
So item number 2, as I had mentioned previously, is the operation of bicycles and play vehicles, which includes scooters. We've been referring to it commonly as a scooter ordinance. It's broader than scooter ordinance, but certainly it pertains to scooters. The red line copy is in front of you, showing the changes that were made at your request since the last time this came before you, and that's also up for your consideration tonight.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Just want to thank you, Scott, on that ordinance. I know it took some time, a lot of conversation back and forth, but, I think we finally agreed. Am I right, Mr. Trujillo?
Yes, sir.
Agree with it, so good to go.
We had some good public input. We even had an attorney that did some public input that was very helpful, and so community effort.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Elias, were you going to speak?
I just wanted to make a quick comment on it. just to say that the process and how we, as the operator and the owner of this company with Bird, how we came into the city, we could have done the process a little better, and I'm thankful that you guys were here to be able to keep the public in liability, that issue, keep that from becoming a problem. But in the future, I think this company and these scooters and outdoor recreational aspect of the economy is something that here in Las Vegas that we should keep counting on, because it's an aspect of the economy that is really not here in Las Vegas. And that's really a reason why I brought the scooters here. And I know there's still going to be problems down the road because it's such a new business model. But the bottom line is, I think the benefits of what this can bring to the community will outweigh any problems, and anything we can work out as a community, I think we should be doing that. But I just want to thank council and mayor for going through this process. It's kind of been a long process, but thank you guys.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your perseverance as well, Elias. Mr. McCoy.
We got a little bit of heat because of this issue and the subject. And you know what, since the beginning, I mean, I think staff should have probably worked on this a little bit better. But this is not to say that after tonight, this item cannot come back for improvements. So if there's any deficiencies or anything that we need to correct, we need you to bring it to our attention, as well as we'll bring it to yours, and then we'll work on those kind of situations. If you want to also open up a taxi service, I mean, you're more than welcome to. It's pretty well needed out here. We have people flying in the airport with no taxi service. We have a couple of motels that do have the service for them, but you know, it's a good form of transportation for us, for the community, and we'll move forward. But we do want to do it safely. So I think that was the main concern that mayor and council had, keeping our public safe and the driver and the lawsuits away from us and away from you. So, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Appreciate it, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Montoya? Mr. Romero?
And also, Mr. Trujillo, I just also want to add that at the same time, you know, I think we need to make sure that we need to hold Bird accountable. I mean, you know, there are some things that they need to be in compliance with and making sure that they're doing and not just leaving you out, you know, in the cold. You know, so that's, if we need to do that, then let us know also. So.
And if you guys understand that I'm upheld to them because they are my boss, and there is some stuff I would rather do differently, but because they're my boss, that's the way. And as long as we can work at that level and keep them their feet to the fire as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Going back, I don't know, if Councilor Rodriguez, you brought up a good point that, Scott, on the first draft on number 5, could we add the points to it on that just to be cautious, or?
So it's not confusing in the future.
What up there?
Shall be 6% points,
What page of the ordinance are you on?
page 3.
Page 3.
It states something similar in the B above.
All of them reference points except for 5.
Okay, so you're talking about number 5, adding the max. So it would read, the maximum available local preference shall be 6% of the total possible points,
Yes.
or 6, or, okay. I don't have any objection to adding that in if that's what you guys would prefer, and if you want to pass it with that amendment to it, that's fine.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to return back to regular session.
There is a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to return into regular session. I'll entertain a second at this time.
Second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivetti Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-13 with the amendment language that we include points on item number 5 on page 3.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to adopt ordinance 21-13. There's a second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivetti Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra. And item number 2, what's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 21-14.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to
Second,
adopt
Mr. Mayor.
ordinance 21-14.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivetti Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivetti Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to business item number 3, request approval of the lodger's tax recommendation to provide funding to the Las Vegas First Independent Business Alliance for the Las Vegas Tourism Brochure and for FIBA to commit to contract requirements for the collection of data and feedback results. We have Mr. Hendrickson, our Community Development Director, Melissa Green, and Andy Kingsbury with Las Vegas First IBA.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely welcome.
Councilors and Mr. Mayor, just want to give you Mr. Krutek's apology. He's just tied up with his hotels tonight and couldn't make it last minute. We're here tonight to request approval. Lodger's Tax has approved funding of $10,530, excuse me, to produce a rack card, a brochure, to produce 40,000 of them to distribute throughout the visitor centers in the state of New Mexico and just beyond. Excuse me. I brought Melissa Green and Andy Kingsbury here tonight. They're the ones that are going to produce it and do the project to do the distribution. And if you have any questions about the brochure, there's a sample brochure in your packet to give you an idea of what it will look like, but it'll all be about Las Vegas and our maps and so forth. But if you have some questions you'd like to ask Melissa and Andy.
I don't have any questions as much as a comment that I'm looking forward to the final project, to the final product. It's well overdue and like Susie said, printed material is very popular, especially when people come into a restaurant or they cut off the train, they want something to look at, and parents bringing their kids to the university and to the colleges, and then, you know, I'm sure it'll be widely used, so I'm very enthusiastic about the product. Yes. Mr. Romero?
I just have one question. Over the past month, I've had an opportunity to go to Eagle's Nest, Angel Fire, and Red River, and there was nothing pertaining to Las Vegas, New Mexico in their visitor center at all.
I would agree.
There's a reason. Well, we didn't print last year because of COVID. We didn't print our guide. It was turned down by Lodger's Tax Board, and now we are completely empty.
So how soon would we, I mean, if we approve this, how soon would this, I mean, because if we put them in, it's going to be winter time, I mean, our peak time is now, so how soon are we looking at the turnaround, is my first question. My second question is going to be, the mayor, Bill Hendrickson, Dr. Taylor, and myself, we went to the Welcome Center, and inside that Welcome Center, there was about 10 or 15 cases of brochures in that building. And I just want to make sure that what we're purchasing, that those are going to be out at the visitor centers and not somewhere in some box or in some shed or in some business not being used. Am I right, Mr. Mayor? Bill?
I mean, old guides.
Yeah, they're
old
always
business-
approachable.
See, you know, if someone would tell me that, we can use those. They pick up any of our guides, whether they're 4 years old or more recent, just because we do a historical coverage of Las Vegas. I mean, we'd like all those guides back, because we can get rid of them. People take them every day.
Okay.
The Plaza Hotel hands them out, the Casaneda, our shop, Plaza Antiques. I mean, they're looking for them all over town.
It was quite a bit,
And
I
just,
wanted to make
the
sure.
only thing that changes is the schedule of events. So everything else is new history to someone that hasn't been here before. So, and, yeah, we're always hunting for guides. I mean, we've been publishing our visitor's guide for 13 years, and we've done from 70,000 down to 40,000, depending on the year and the advertising and whatnot.
So as a return, how would we, as the council, get information that those were, however many that we're saying that we're purchasing, were put out into? I mean,
Well, we put out, I mean, I'm even surprised, I mean, we drop off guys that.
So I guess, let me clarify that. So in your report, because, you know, you do them first, am I right? Las Vegas First will purchase them, and then once they get the receipt that they got him and put them out, then we reimburse them, am I right, Bill?
They're gonna hire, there's a company that does the distribution of rack cards. So they go around all the visitor centers and other locations where they have, you know, all the rack cards from all.
So where's the
over state.
where's the certification that they were all placed, is my question. Like,
Well.
The accountability- the
I mean, the company has been in business for 25 years, and they distribute them weekly. I think they refill 180 racks around Santa Fe and the Visitor Center.
So Bill, in your department, what will you be getting from them? From Las Vegas First or from the company?
We'll get
For the
it from Las
accountability.
Vegas First. So we're dealing with Las Vegas First. Las Vegas First will deal with the company.
Okay, so what are you requesting of them? That's what I'm asking right
So
now.
we'll have to we will get invoiced and proof that they've done what they're supposed to do.
So real quick, we're going to print 40,000 of these, and so we will, obviously, that company is going to be responsible for the distribution, and what was the monthly fee?
$85.
So, part of this submission to lodger's tax was for that to happen over a year's time, for them to deliver the 40,000. So that's, you know, and I can't tell you if they're going to run out in 3 months or 6 months or 8 months, but we have to put our, I mean, we put our faith in that they're going to do the service that they're hired to do. Prior to this folding rack card, when we would do our visitor's guide, it would be Andy and myself driving them around the state of New Mexico to all the visitor centers and chambers of commerces and you know, major hotels and things throughout the state, and we did that twice a year. And so that was, you know, the city had that understanding with us and just the faith in us. I mean, you know, we had mileage and things to give to the city to prove that we've been there, you know, places like.
So can we get a list of those?
Well, that was for the visitor's guide, and the rack card would be the same. That list is going to have to come from this company because we won't be delivering it. But just so you know how important printed the guide, the printed version of the guide, Glen Rio and Gallup each would take, 20 cases in the spring and in the fall. I mean, they just couldn't keep them in there, and so we're just not a presence now when you enter the state, except for this rack card, which we hope will bring people here. And real quick, I just want to, if you've all seen this, I hope in your packet, this is just an example, but it'll have the Calumet girl here, and then just some kind of a generic photo of Vegas and information. And then probably, I think one of the, from the Rough Rider rodeo, kind of a cowboy here. We're going to have, and there'll be more information about the Rough Riders. We'll have things to do here, which is going to be the Rough Rider Museum, the Wildlife Refuge, Story Lake, Savanosa Wilderness, the Montezuma Hot Springs. It'll have reference to the digital historic walking tour, which is on the Visit Las Vegas NM site, the Fort Union Drive-In, birding, hiking, camping, fishing, all of those things. Here's what to do. And then inside, it's going to have the history of Las Vegas, the Santa Fe Trail and our city's culture, the Wild West, our movie history, and Bill mentioned to me today that maybe a listing of events. Not knowing how long the 40,000 are going to last, he and I will have to talk about what events, or if we just want to mention our 4th of July fiestas, you know, things that happen, but maybe not the date, and then reference to the website to go to those things. And like the Rough Rider motorcycle rally's not happening this year, I understand, and I don't know if I should mention it if it's not going to happen next year. So anyway, I found room for that. Also on this side of it will be kind of our historical map of the historical districts, and then, you know, photos of the World College and Highlands and Story Lake, I forgot, but mostly that's just a big map there, just so people can kind of get a reference to where they are. And so that's where we are right now. And, you know, if I can get together with Bill shortly and kind of wrap this thing up, hopefully in the next week or 10 days, then it's just the printing time. And once it's printed and delivered to that distribution service, then they'll go out. So I know it's late, but
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Rowe?
With that, I mean, I would recommend that we do include the 4th of July, the Rough Rider, Salute to Troops, People's Fair, and the Electric Light Parade in the events. I mean, those are our biggest events that we do have in the community, so.
And we don't necessarily have to put dates in there, we
Right.
just say December, November, October, whatever the month is.
The rally is gonna happen again next year, it's just,
Yeah.
what happens with them is a lot of their vendors, they move from rally to rally, and because of, you know, the short notice, they had already committed to another place. So that's one of the biggest.
And we'll just keep a track of, you know, if we're gonna run out, we'll just, you know, reconsider a second printing or whatever needs to be done, just to keep the volume going if that's what's necessary, so we don't run out. And then, in addition to that, the lodger's tax at last night's meeting has passed on to the marketing committee to take on the visitor's guide in this decision. There was a lot of vacillation going around about, do we really want to go digital or hands-on? And I think everybody's in agreement, there is a place for hands-on books and stuff. And so we're going to work with them and come up with a quick decision on that, so we can start planning on the next printing of the visitor's guide production.
Thank you. Are you done, Mr.
Yes.
Romero? Okay, sorry. I just want to echo Mr. Romero's concern. I don't think it's much to ask the company to list the locations as to where the...
I'm sure they can do that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
And another reason too about the guide not being printed with COVID and everyone's closed, a lot of the monies that pay to produce the guide, yes, we do get some from lodger's tax and from the county, but we really count on those advertisers and those monies. And we were not about to go ask anybody to do an ad in the guide when COVID was just not over yet, and we knew everyone was really short of funds. And so that's another reason, and there was something else, but I forgot. But anyway, that was a big reason why we didn't, there's no way we were going to go ask all of our advertisers to do this again, so.
Mr. McLeod?
My concern would be, or a suggestion would be, to add the Fort Union Drive-In Theater in your packet also, because they bring a lot of people to this community.
I did mention it.
I know they're not in the county,
Yeah.
but they do have a business license in the city of Las Vegas. And I think 90% of their people that they serve come from out of the city limits.
Yeah.
So,
It's definitely
Yeah.
in there on the things to do.
the other thing is, I think I agree with Councilman Romero that a listing should be on this request, saying where they were delivered to last year,
Or this year.
or this year.
Well, they aren't the same thing. I mean, our guide goes to, like 180 places around the state. This is more unified around Santa Fe and the entry points.
Okay.
And this is just one company.
And
that,
then I also attended that Lodgers Tax meeting yesterday, and they're kind of changing their application at a request of the city mayor and council, but they are also changing their request to be done twice a year. So next year, you need to do your request probably in January, because the other request is going to be in August. So.
We would
Yeah.
usually do it every year in
And
January.
by January, everybody should be on board as to if they're going to have an activity happening in Las Vegas or not.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these things have taken months to plan.
I know.
So, but thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any
Mr.
other
Mayor.
discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Gr- Mr.
I have a
Uribe?
question. I'm pretty sure, I know that they discussed all the events that are coming in. How about the People's Fair? I'm pretty sure you're going to have something on the first.
Sure.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, they're all covered.
Thank you.
We'll get all of our usual ones in
Sure.
there. And
Oh.
yeah, well, I've got the room for it and can even, spot a few photos here
Right.
and there just to entice people. And then obviously it's then going to visit Las Vegas and the website. Because a lot of these people, I can't fit everying, even though this
Right,
is a
right,
lot of
right.
room. But we still will direct people to a website for more coverage.
Thank you.
One last question. On your first page, on the back side of it, you have a total cost of deliverables of $38,530. Is that an error from another?
So that was including the visitor's guide at the time this application was submitted, and the board only approved the rack card. So the rack card was $10,530 of that $38,000.
Oh, okay, so.
Yeah. I probably should have scratched that out. I
Yeah, all
just
right.
overlooked that.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the Lodgers Tax Board's approval funding for Las Vegas First Independence in the amount of $10,530.
I second.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya, a second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Bill and Andy, the previous approvals that funding that we've given you through Lodgers Tax, have you had any reports back to Bill or to the Lodgers Tax Board? Because we haven't.
On the projects that were all approved?
Yes.
Most of those are still in motion. The one project that is completed was the application, not the application, but the phone app for Las Vegas Connect. And they are going to give us a briefing at our next meeting on it.
All right. Can we
that's
get that
something that
information,
was-
whatever's submitted, can we get that? Just,
Yes. I guess we haven't done that before, but at last night's meeting, that was one of the things that was brought up that we're going to start doing, is that when the projects are completed, we want to have a report on how it went and how it turned out and the pluses and the
and
minuses.
that's what we want at the end of the day is,
Yeah.
did it work? Did we see an increase? Is there records from the hotels that we saw an increase for the money that we
Sure.
spent? That's all we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for all that you do. All of you do a wonderful job. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you, Bill. Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, item number 5, request approval of resolution number 21-27, accepting a grant offer and applying for a match waiver for the Cooperative Municipal Agreement Grant in the amount of $21,689. We have our Public Works Manager, Danny Goudelet.
Welcome.
Council.
Welcome, Mr. Gurula.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
make a motion to approve Resolution 21-27.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Item number 6, request approval of Resolution 2128, authorizing the application submission of a New Mexico Community Development Block Grant CDBG program to New Mexico Department of Finance and Administration, and authorizing the mayor as chief executive officer and authorized representative to participate in the 2021 CDBG program. Mr. Goudelet?
Mayor, Council, I'm here to seek approval of Resolution 2128 to apply for the CDBG for Hot Springs Boulevard you guys voted on, and to appoint the mayor as Chief Executive Officer and authorized representative for the CDBG grant.
So just authorizing him to be the representative. We don't know anything on the grant yet, or
No, we're just going to apply for it now.
are we going to, well, I mean, this is just authorizing him, so, Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve Resolution 21-28.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to approve Resolution 21-28.
Second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please. Question by Mr. Montoya.
Daniel, so the amount is, it's 1 out of 5 phases.
Yes, I put that on there because the cost to finish the project is up there. So with this 750 plus our match, we'll be able to do a section from Mills, I think, to Mora Street or something.
But that's
And
all
this-
for all five sections, for all 5?
No, this is just for the
one
first phase. Yes,
One phase,
yes.
750,000.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, no, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 7 is request approval of Resolution 2129 to appoint Leo Maestas, City Manager, as authorized representative to execute all grant offers pertaining to the City of Las Vegas Municipal Airport. Mr. Danny Goudelet?
I'm here to seek approval of Resolution 2129 to appoint Mr. Maestas as authorized representative to execute all grant offers pertaining to the airport. Second, any questions?
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? What's the pleasure of the council? I'll entertain a motion for approval for Resolution 21-29.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Montoya, a second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you, Danny. Thanks for all your work. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, next item is executive session, if there is a need.
Mr. Mayor, I ask that we move into executive session to discuss personal matters or litigation matters.
There's a motion on the floor to enter executive session by Mr. Montoya. I'll entertain a second. Second by Mr. Olivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Missed that.
Questions?
We'll complain about that. It's in basketball courts.
Do you know where they were asking them for?
They just wanted them centralized in some of the parks.
Almost 2 years.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to return to regular session after being in executive session. I'd like to know for the record, only those matters specified in the motion for executive session were discussed. No action was taken.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Mr. Romero, a second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mayor. Make a motion to adjourn.
There's a motion on the floor to adjourn. Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Zach. Thank you, guys.
Just to let you know, we've been getting calls reference